Idunn, the Norse goddess who kept the gods. Young, have you ever wondered why the Norse gods never seemed to grow old? Odin, wise beyond measure, still stood tall and commanding. Thor, the thunderer, always carried unmatched strength. Freya, goddess of beauty, never lost her radiance. But how is this possible? The answer was not their own power. It rested in the hands of one mysterious goddess. Without her, even the mightiest of the gods would have become frail and powerless. Her name was Idunn, and she carried the secret to eternal youth, the golden apples of Asgard. If the gods ever lost her, they would lose everything, and once they almost did. The keeper of eternal youth, Idunn, whose name means she who renews, was not a warrior, nor a queen, nor a goddess of storms or sorcery. She was gentle, kind, and radiant. Yet her role was greater than any sword or throne, for she carried the basket of golden apples, the source of the gods' immortality. Whenever age began to creep upon the Aesir, they turned to Idunn. Odin's piercing gaze would dull, Thor's strength would fade, and Freya's beauty would dim. But one bite of Idunn's golden fruit restored their youth and vigor. The gods might rule the 9 realms, but without Idunn, they were as mortal as men. Her apples were not just fruit, they were life itself, a divine promise that the gods would remain young until the very end of days. The betrayal that almost destroyed Asgard. Yet one day, disaster struck, and it came from within. Loki, the trickster, always restless for mischief, lured Idunn from the safety of Asgard. He told her he had found apples even more beautiful than her own. Trusting his words, she followed him beyond the city walls. There, the sky darkened as a massive eagle swooped down. It was no ordinary bird, but the giant Thiassi, disguised in feathers. He seized Idunn and carried her far away to his mountain stronghold. At first, the gods noticed nothing, but soon the change was undeniable. Odin's shoulders bent under the weight of time. Thor's mighty arms weakened. Even Heimdall, the ever-vigilant, felt the slowing of his heart. Panic spread through Asgard. Without Idunn and her apples, they were doomed. The gods confronted Loki. They knew only he could be behind such trickery. Terrified for his own life, Loki promised to bring her back. Loki's desperate flight. With no time to lose, Loki borrowed Freya's magical falcon feather cloak. He soared across mountains and forests until he found Thiassi's home. There, in a cold chamber, Idunn sat, clutching her basket of golden apples. To rescue her, Loki used his magic. He transformed Idunn into a small nut and carried her in his claws. But Thiassi soon discovered the escape. With a furious cry, the giant shed his human form, spread his wings, and gave chase. Across the skies they flew, Loki racing desperately for Asgard, while Thiassi's shadow grew ever closer. The gods, seeing the chase from the city walls, quickly built a massive fire. As Loki darted through the gates, Thiassi followed too closely. The flames scorched his feathers, and the gods struck him down. Idunn was restored, and the golden apples returned. At once, youth flowed back into the gods' veins, their strength renewed. Asgard had been saved, but only barely. The meaning behind the myth, the story of Idunn, is not just about gods and giants. It carries deep meaning. The fragility of power. Even the strongest gods relied on something as simple as fruit for their might. Without Idunn, their power was an illusion. The value of renewal. Idunn reminds us that youth and vitality are not eternal. They must be cared for and preserved. The danger of trust. Idunn's trust in Loki nearly destroyed the gods, showing how even kindness can be exploited. The cycle of life. Her apples symbolize the cycles of nature: decay followed by renewal, decline answered by rebirth, Idunn and the end of days. Though Idunn's apples kept the gods youthful, even they could not escape destiny. At Ragnarok, the final battle, they would face giants, monsters, and death itself. But thanks to Idunn, they would march into that battle in the full bloom of their power, unbroken and unafraid. Her gift was not endless life, but the strength to face the end with courage. Conclusion: the gentle goddess who held the fate of the gods. Idunn was no warrior. She did not wield a hammer like Thor or rule the realms like Odin. Yet her power was greater than theirs, for without her, the gods would wither, their glory fading into dust. Her golden apples were more than a treasure. They were the very heartbeat of Asgard, the secret that made gods divine. So remember this: behind every tale of thunder, wisdom, and war in Norse mythology, there was Idunn, the quiet goddess of youth, whose golden apples kept the gods young, and whose absence almost brought about their ruin.